Well, hello, gentlemen. Glad you're with us tonight. We're going to have a nice conversation about the future of the Alliance, but more than that, about what we went through this past year. I'm glad to have you all here. Um, so let's start it off with those that are joining me tonight. I am Rem. With me is Darth Primus
Hello, hello.
and Mediulator
Good evening.
and R2DQ.
What's up, guys?
So let's not make this a long night, but let's have a good conversation about what we went through this past year. It's been a long year. We've seen a lot of changes within Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and also a lot of changes within our alliance. And so let's get into some of those. Let's start with Darth Primus. What have you seen has been the biggest change throughout this year within the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes?
I think everyone's thinking this in the room here, but definitely Datacrons, as I'm sure is not really a surprise here, but really has changed just the competitive aspect, PvP specifically, of how the game operates and how we know it, and especially with just how you can't even activate a Datacron without a minimum of R3 across the board. So it's excluding a pretty big portion of the player base, I would say, from being even able to interact with them. Definitely, probably one of the biggest shifts within how we understand Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes today.
All right, so let's go down that road. How has that affected everyone's guilds, not just your guild, but you think the alliance as a whole, and how guilds are smartly dealing with that?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and really, it really just varies one on where you as an account are in the game, GP wise, and also just the competitive aspect. As I'm sure many in the community probably choose to not interact with Datacrons out of just in not wanting to have to deal with another mechanic, or essentially they're another version of mods to me. It's the simplest way to put it. But I know from personal experience within Mandalore, there was definitely there was some hesitation in adopting Datacrons moving forward. I think there was just it's kind of I would say a darker time for Mandalore. We definitely really struggled when it came to getting a good adoption rate with Datacrons. We didn't really want to force that onto our players because one, it was really time consuming to get them through conquest, and two, it's just you're having to relearn the game, and especially at a high competitive level where Mandalore's at, it can really lead to burnout, and that's what we experienced. There was a point in time where we were down to 40 out of 50 players. And even then, we were all struggling to recruit. And as I'm sure Scarif and or Ryloth were also struggling when it came to recruitment within that period of time. But going down the line, I guess I'll let R2DQ speak that further because he's kind of in that GP range where when Datacrons were released, not many people could completely or fully interact with them just because of the roster limitations.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, R2. Go ahead,
Okay.
R2.
All right. So yeah, I mean, Datacrons I've kind of enjoyed them to a certain extent because, it can take that team that, isn't quite that great and help them really punch up. But it also takes those teams that are already powerful and just makes them absolutely OP. Like, I think we can all pour one out to the death of the LV cooldown Datacron. But, in Mortis, we are semi-competitive, and I think Rem will probably have a similar outlook on this, but we we don't force people to do it. We had a couple people get a little burned out, when they were first dropping, just as another thing. It was basically the reason for some people to leave the game, but we didn't have a ton of that, and most of our guys have just engaged with it and at least get one decent one. If they have the GL, they're usually getting the Datacron that goes with it. But yeah, I mean, it's another slog. It's another grind. I think today I did the bounty hunter bonus node 10 times today and had one Datacron drop. So it's tough to get them.
Fair enough. Meet you later. Do you have any comments on this subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think Endor went through a similar kind of experience. We had I think we were in a good spot. Like, we had a lot, like our players bought in, and just like our experience with Datacrons was, we were a good TW guild, and Datacrons have really like. There's other reasons, but our like outperforming our opponents with Datacrons has really led to us becoming very dominant in TW. Our win rate has been extremely high. We have like 2 losses in our last 30 matches, and both of those we got sandbagged. So for us, like I think we were able to capitalize on the opportunity they provided and really get a huge advantage over our opponents in TWs with them.
Well, so like RTDQ said, Mustafar and also Jeddah uh, are not guilds that ask anyone to farm any specific thing. We are very open-minded to allowing players to play the game the way they want to play. But what we found was Datacrons allowed us to make some secondary teams all of a sudden effective in TW and gave us a stronger defensive presence. Yeah, we had to deal with the ridiculous Lord Vader Datacron, but we actually saw our TW results tick up by then. And it's not because any one player or the entire guild just went all in. It's because they all kind of realized that this is something that's part of playing the game now, and they used them the best way they could. So it's just another strategy modem, in my opinion. But I understand at the top level of the game, like with Mandalore, it becomes a nightmare because everyone's just investing tons of money into those datacrons to make sure that every team they have that they're placing on defense and that they're running on offense has one of those available. So it's a different experience, I think, depending on where you're at in the game. So I'll allow Primus to come back around on that.
Yeah, and to kind of go back on what you were mentioning, where when we were competing in the gauntlet, I wouldn't say we were competing in the gauntlet, but we would play against gauntlet caliber guilds at times when they would drop down, and you'd run the scouting report. And this was early on in Datacrons, and this was when I was running TW with Lab. Well, I still am now. I took a break and came back, but we would see our opponents with 50 of 50 of all these varieties of different Datacrons, and we're looking at ourselves and like, well, we don't force farming, but we got about a quarter of what our opponents do, and they're all cohesive, and they have 50 of 50 of every type of variation. We're about to get smacked. So it's just a very big change in pace for how the game was played at the top competitive level for us. And I think we kind of needed to go through that wake up call and difficult time where I think we ran, like I mentioned earlier, we ran with like 40 or 50 for a bit. And I think that was the necessary evil in order for us to kind of build ourselves back up and just kind of recognize who we are as Mandalore and just get back into the heat of things here. I think the rise of the Empire TB really helped us out when that department as a whole and how to trickle down. But I know that's something we'll talk about here down the line.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it really came down to guilds that started understanding how to make those datacrons work for them are the guilds that ended up coming through it. And that's a situation we've dealt with for years now. Whoever can adjust the quickest to whatever changes CG throws at us are the ones that are going to be the most successful.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right. So somebody else, what was another big change that we saw hit that we want to talk about?
I'll go. So I think this was technically like a 2021 change, but the impact of it was really felt throughout the year was the GAC system and moving crystals from Squad Arena to GAC and pretty much ensuring that only the players at the kind of like the highest end were able to kind of recover from losing out on squad, like the top end of Squad Arena. The crystal income that was providing players was really only accessible to high-end Kyber players, and how that kind of like changed people's like where people played in this game. I think it before GAC was kind of something fun. People would go for Kyber, right? You'd have your easy matchups. And then as the kind of month went on, your matchups became tougher. You'd get Kyber, but the rewards were really, it was just, the rewards weren't that great. Like no one was, you get some Zetas, you get some slicing materials, which were good, but for the amount of work you were putting in, the rewards weren't there. It was just kind of, I made Kyber again. This year, with the rewards being tied to crystals, which is like the kind of like the what drives your account forward, and then kind of attached to that is the how Omicron's kind of divided the game mode up. I think it allowed some players who wanted to be good at GAC the incentive to really, really push how far in how competitive their account was going to be in GAC because it was so important for crystal income, and then other people who kind of maybe never really took Squad Arena that seriously or didn't want to put the time in, kind of as a result became more casual because they weren't able to continually get those kind of like 500 crystals a day that GAC was kind of working out to be. So personally, I kind of went back and forth. I started the year and I was like, awesome. This is like, I'd always get Kyber in the previous system. And I was like, okay, this is my chance. Like, no more just getting matched up with people that were my level. And I pushed hard and I went all the way up to K2, which I think I made K2 at 5 million. And I was like, awesome. And then I just started to get my ass kicked, like week in, week out, just running into these accounts that I had no business getting matched against. And I was like, you know what? Like, once you hit a level, it's very like, I was like, K1 is a million miles away. I can just live K2, K3, and just become like a TW account. I'm like, I could focus on TW, TV, like GAC isn't where I need to be investing in, because for me to get anything else out of this would require a huge investment. And my account's grown a lot since then, and I'm kind of looking again to be a little more competitive in GAC. But I definitely went super competitive at the start, and then was just happy being 500.
So I have a strong opinion on this subject, but I want to hear everyone else's comments first. R2 DQ, how has your experience been with that crystal switch?
I love it. I never got in with my Squad Arena, Shard, Discord, chat, anything. So I was basically living around, top 50, top 20 some days. There was once or twice I cracked top 10. Um, but, I've been able with, you know, minimal investment in time, even sometimes just, making sure I get my token battle attack in so I get credit for the round. I'm living in the low ends of K2, high ends of K3. My crystal income, it greatly benefited from these changes. And, the nice thing is you can take some time off because, as long as you're not falling into, as long as I don't fall into K5 and risk getting dropped to Erodium, I'm in good shape to keep getting consistent crystal incomes, especially now that I've gotten in with my fleet shard. I'm getting enough crystals to, do all the refreshes and then even bank some up so I can, buy some R8 mats when I'm needing it, or just relic mats in general. But yeah, I absolutely love these changes. And it's fun seeing some of the guys in our guild who, like Mead was saying, they have smaller accounts with like 1 GL fighting their way up to K3, beating these accounts that have 4 or 5 galactic legends and winning convincingly sometimes. So it's just it's changed completely how I view GAC in a very positive light.
Primus, at the upper end, how have you guys seen it?
Yeah, so kind of a similar experience to Mead where I personally I was adamant, or I'm sorry, I wasn't really sure about the changes when they went live. And then I kind of realized, well, I'm no longer strapped to my phone for a 3 hour window because, as you all know, Squad Arena and Fleet Arena payouts run back to back. So I think that was the biggest quality of life improvement I saw when it came from the shift of crystals from Squad Arena to GAC. But I got a similar experience to Mead where, I got thrown in just because of my GP into bottom of K2, fought my way up to like 3,800 skill rating in Kyber 1. And I think I was around 7 mil then with not all the GLs, and I didn't have Star Killer, but I was feeling really good because I went undefeated for quite a bit. And then, reality decided to just come and hit me in the face, and I just got dunked on by maxed out accounts for about a good bracket and a half. So it was a humbling experience for sure. But adding on to like what R2DQ said, it's nice because if you just time things right, you can push really hard in 1 week, just get those secured wins and get those secured crystals. And then if you need to take the time off, you can lose a couple in a row and you'll still break even just based off of the, depends what bracket you're in, but you'll still break even at the end of the day as if it was in the old system. So there's pros and cons to both, but I like the new system overall.
Right. So I was a guy that it took me a couple years to finally break into one of my shard chats. And that's one of the biggest things that I have appreciated with the new system is there were good players that were not able to get what would be their crystal reward just because of the old school shard chat mafia that existed. And that's kind of what I love the most about how this how the change broke that up. Now it's legitimately what effort are you willing to put in? Yes, eventually you're going to get into you're going to win 50% of your battles and lose 50% of your battles, and you're going to find out exactly where you stand within the game. But the crystal rewards even at that level, are better than what most people were getting in shard chat mafias. So I think this was a good move. It was a healthy move for the game. It rewards people that are willing to put the effort in, and let's just say stops making this we're all a group of players and we're going to shut you out and work together to shut you out. You can't imagine the amount of crystals that were spent just to keep somebody from being able to enjoy crystal rewards. I am incredibly happy with the change, and I hope they push something similar to this to our ships soon.
So I will just say, and I don't think any of us can really speak to it. I worry about the health of the lower GP players. Like, even you really need to kind of get into when we all started the game, you could get everyone was kind of at the same level. You had a couple whales in your squad arena, but like you could get to the top of squad arena and get those 600 crystals a day within a year to 18 months.
Only if you spent money.
Sure. Well, yeah. Okay. Once you got your first GL, you could climb. And now I think I worry like those players like are going to be locked out of Kyber, which for
I,
a very long time. Like it's going to take you. I don't know if those players like if someone starts the game now, how long? When do they get to Kyber or even a Rhodium?
I think you're overrating what those players care about. I'm in multiple uh, starter guilds that are building their way up. Uh, I have been a part of building many of them, and yes, everyone would love to hit Kyber, but what they like more is the climb. Just seeing themselves climb up the ladder. If anyone is starting this guild as a new free to play player and thinking they're going to hit Kyber 1, that's never going to happen unless you put down a ton of money. And that's only one game mode. There are so many other game modes, so many other ways to enjoy this game. Kyber is not the end all be all of enjoyment out of the game. Remember, this is a collection game. Growing yourself, building your roster. My experience is within those successful starter guilds, they're not worried about being the best in day 1 or day 600. They just want to see growth and they want to continue to be more competitive as the days go on. They know they're not going to ever be Kyber 1.
Right, but it's just like GL grinds are so hard, and getting those like crystals are so important for
They
those
are.
GL grinds, and you're really taking all of those new players and their GL, like their second GL is going to be as hard for them to grind as their first. And for most of us who played before this change, our second GL went a lot faster because all of a sudden our crystal income, if you were climbing a squad and fleet, was a lot higher, and you took all those extra crystals and you could pour it into your second GL, and then they start going one after another a lot faster. And
So
that's not something newer players are going to feel because they're still going to be at such a low level that they're never going to flip over and get all of those crystals.
I will disagree on the speed of farming. I was a part of the building of Bespin, which is a very successful guild and still a highly competitive guild. Then I moved to Korriban. Um, I think the timing of when we built Korriban was meh, but it's still a very successful guild and growing strong. And then you have Jeddah, which I am the current GL over, and it's well over 200 million, already engaging a lot of late game activities with many of our players that have only been playing for a year that are already hitting their second GL and working towards their third. So it really depends on how interactive you are in the other areas of the game.
That's good to hear.
I gotta agree with Mead on this, just because even every shard is segmented, but I think that's the one downside from the shift from squad arena payouts to GAC, is those that did hyper focus the roster to get a GL or that one unit to push you to the top of your arena rankings, to just collect um, that daily number one payout or top five. But I mean, I felt the change, especially like I didn't break into my arena's top 10 until I got a GL, and I really did see the changes as far as was the speed of my farms. But it's a new system, and I think it's not going away anytime soon. But I do agree, it does suck for those that are, I wouldn't say, like, we're the ones adopting the new system. Those that are born into the new one here, they're never gonna know as like the feeling as far as just hitting that number one spot and just accelerating their crystal income and their farms as it is. Maybe they'll feel it in squad arena, but yeah, it's a little bit of a different feeling. I can agree there, Mead.
I guess I was just saying, I remember when Korriban was born, the system didn't exist. And
Yeah.
Unless somebody within that guild was investing money, they had no chance to any sort of crystal income. Now, it doesn't matter whether you invest or not, you can still get a reasonable crystal income. It's not the, oh yeah, you're stuck at 25 crystals per day when you exercise your 1 hour of working. It's now you get a 24-hour period to see how far you can climb up. So it made money a little bit less, but I get your point that in the past, if you were a dedicated, competitive, really interested character or player, you would be able to get yourself to the top of your arena. That was unrealistic for the vast majority of players. So, to the competitive side of things, I understand why this was not necessarily the greatest move, but I still think it is, because those competitive players are still going to rise above the rest, and they just may not be able to rise as fast as they were in the past.
I can agree with that.
How about you, R2DQ?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see where they're coming from. You know, someone who's getting top rewards, or being able to fight your way up. But if there were so many shard mafias, like we had a guy in Mortis who, he took a break from the game, came back, unlocked JMK, and climbed up into the top 5 of his squad arenauts for payout one day, and he got messages from multiple people in game in that shard saying, "You don't belong here." And so they then pushed him all the way back down, and you know that kind of stuff, taking that power out of the handful of a few and giving broader rewards to everybody is definitely appreciated, at least in my book.
Yeah, that was kind of the point I was making. I actually existed in a mafia like that. It took me 2 years to get into it, and I hated every moment that I was in it. The amount of crystals that were spent to keep people down were doing nothing but helping CG. And so that's where I come from. I like this. It's more of a, you know, the cream rises to the top, and effort will win you better rewards.
Yeah, I can agree. I can see that side of it too. The shard mafias, I know some are terrible in comparison to others.
No, there were some great shards too, but
Like
anyway.
I got into my fleet shard in the past 2 months or so, and it's a great shard because like what'll happen is I'll get a ping on Discord, and it's the guy who's slated for #1 because I share my payout with two other guys, and they'll just be like, "Hey, I can't make it into the game right now. If you want to take #1, go ahead." And it's more about sharing and making sure that we all get rewards as opposed to it's mine and mine alone.
Yeah.
So, but I've also I've seen the opposite side of it. It's just that's an ugly part of the game.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to a new topic. So another great thing that happened this past year, R2DQ. Let's throw one out there.
Mod changes. We got the ability to calibrate mods, and we're able to farm more of the mod, the 6-dot slicing materials, which were previously only available through galactic challenges. It's been great to see in my account, and then seeing a lot of the accounts around the alliance and in Mortis. Rather than relying on having the right faction to get the right I can't remember what they're called. It's the square for slicing 6-dot mods. Let me pull it up real quick. But being able to just farm those has been absolutely phenomenal. The Mark II circuit breaker modules. Because that's been a lot. That's like one of the big bottlenecks in getting mods sliced are those. And when you were going to a galactic challenge that needed inquisitors, and you have G8 3-star inquisitors, you'd be lucky to walk out of that GC with 7 of them, which isn't even enough to take it from 6E to 6D. But now we can farm those. We can farm the micro attenuators to take that one that just wouldn't roll speed and hope that it does this time. So that's just, I've seen a great uptick in my mod score and in mod scores around Mortis.
The other thing was we don't roll 4-dot mods anymore.
That too, yes. That is
That's really helped.
the only thing, the only drawback to that, and it's not really a drawback, is that when you're remodding for LSGO or whatever you're remodding for, and all of a sudden your inventory cap has been reached, you can't just go in and sell off the 20 to 30 3-4-dot mods that you accidentally just haven't deleted yet. But
So you're saying
that's a
you're
champagne
saying,
problem.
Yeah.
yeah. So you're saying you have to actually look through your mods and figure out which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Primus.
Yeah, I gotta agree with R2TQ. I love my mods. But me and Mead were talking earlier today in the mods channel, and kind of he was showing his progression from before the mod changes and after, and I think you had a 2 point something score jump if I'm recalling that correctly, Mead.
Yeah, I was averaging like just over 1, like plus 25 mod a month, and now I'm almost averaging 3.
And I haven't gone through to look at the actual math month to month for the before and after, but I felt like I wasn't having too good of mod RNG lately when it comes to slicing. But I actually saw that I nearly doubled my plus 20 mod counts, plus 20 mods or speed mod counts, and added about 20 or 20 plus of my plus 25s, and similar effect to my plus 10s and plus 15s. So it's definitely a noticeable change. Mods are a slow game, as everybody knows here, but I think this year it's really helped, especially with the pace that CG is releasing characters. We need more mods, and we need them. We needed those yesterday, so the increase in pace is very welcomed with the changes.
Meet you later.
Yeah, I love my mods as well. I was super happy about this change. I kind of went through and I was like looking at all my numbers for the year, and yeah, like my mod score has gone up quite a bit in the last 3 months. This was a really good change for the game. Excuse me, sorry. The other thing I was really happy was I felt like it didn't throw away our work that we already had into our accounts. It's like a bump. We're all doing a little bit better, but the players who are already investing are still have a very large advantage. It's just everyone together is rising a little bit, which is nice.
I'm one of those players. I never invested in a mod unless I needed it. And so I still have so many resources available for my mods. And I'm sitting there investing in mods on a couple accounts and realizing how quickly and easily I can take, what were meh mods and make them into good mods. I really regret not investing in the system sooner. It seems like a better system that rewards you for the amount of work that you put in and the amount of investment that you put into mods than what was put in before, where it was all RNG. I think they tried to take a little bit of that RNG out and say, hey, the more you work, the better your mods will be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always RNG. It's just more control now. You just get, I mean, the micro attenuators give us one extra roll, which doesn't sound like much, but if you have 4 6A mods, that means one of them will be like noticeably better now. And
Yeah.
so when you had 50 6A mods in your account and micro attenuators dropped, all of a sudden you have like 12 to 15 mods that are now much better. Like that was a big deal, I think, for a lot of the. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say what we need. This is going to be one of the few technical things that I put out there is Marco attenuators are capped. So use them.
There's a cap on them.
I rarely get over 15.
Yeah.
As soon as I have 15, I'm re-rolling something.
If I get 25, I start making bad decisions.
Yes.
I'm like I just don't like. I like to basically just do all my slicing at once. So I think some I've seen around the server, but I have a weird superstition where I slice 5 dot mods on Sundays and I slice 6 dot mods on Tuesdays. I don't know why, I don't know how, but that was my weird habit that I kept. So I just hoard everything until specific Sundays or Tuesdays, and I go to town, and I either get really sad or I get really excited. So just get it all over with at once. So whether I'm really depressed afterwards or just through the roof, just get all the emotions over at once.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Go
so
ahead.
don't do the rim and max out your attenuators.
yeah, I manage those thankfully, but I've come close to hitting cap on accident, and I was like, oh, I got to spend it down a bit, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, so Primus, I don't know if you remember, but like probably about a year ago, you posted about 10 to 15 mod rolls in the mod channel. And you called it Wheel of Sadness. I have totally stolen that. And anytime I get like a 5A mod with like 5 speed and other With 5 speed, I'll post it in the Mortis General channel. Like, who wants to play Wheel of Sadness? And take bets on what you think's gonna roll, what's not, and it's turned into a little fun thing that we do.
I'm glad I could be inspiration there. I remember that day too. I was sitting in my backyard. I just got a cup of coffee, and I'm like, all right, it's Sunday. Like, we're about to find out how the day's gonna go. But that's awesome. I'm glad you guys are cheering it on over there in Mortis.
Okay, let's switch into what are some of the big changes we saw this year in terms of tunes that were added, challenges that were put out at it. And I'll free for all this.
I think one of the biggest factions that was released was the Inquisitors, and how they did it backwards, giving us all of the tunes that without the real they all have leadership abilities, but without the real leader in the Grand Inquisitor, it's a incredibly underwhelming faction. And that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, but now they are the new hot ticket to farm. At least for some people. Other people, like Mead and myself, will be waiting for them to become accelerated.
I think that's the general consensus. So something else that happened.
Mace Windu rework. I think a lot of people were pretty happy, especially since JMK was a hot commodity then, and he was a force gear. I think a lot of people were happy to see he became. He went from being useless to actually like a higher, like a high end B tier, A tier character. I think that was actually a pretty cool highlight of 2022.
You think his ship ever gets reworked?
No, absolutely not.
No,
staying a feeder.
I think there's a chance. I think if they truly split Empire in two, and it looks like Empire is like a fleet, like there's 2 Empire fleets in 2 weeks. When Conquest ends, you can run 2 Empire fleets. I could see them doing something like that for Galactic Republic. Obviously, they need some more ships, but if they're introducing kind of like mechanisms for like this ship has 2 other ships that it summons when it shows up on the battlefield, like to fill out fleets faster. I think there's a chance a second Galactic Republic fleet could show up, but the ship would need a complete rework.
And I'm old enough to remember when that was a pain of a ship to go against.
My account's too young for that.
I remember. It was like it was actually like a pretty good fleet back then.
It was super good on defense because of the crit immunity.
Yeah, the crit immunity and the ultimate were I'm trying to remember what it did because it got reworked before, but it pretty much gave them just like damage immunity or something like that, something of similar effect.
I actually put down as a GAC fleet for a couple weeks because I was keeping. It was when before I had Executor, I was just throwing all of my trash on defense and hoping that I could clear the other team's Executor.
Well, I would run because you can run the Ahsoka ETA2 Y-Wing with Plo and Counselor, right? Just use the 2 reinforcements that kind of mess up the Malevolence. And then I would take all my other shit. So then I still have like 5s, right? You got Rex, and I just throw all the other Galactic Republic ships under Mace. Back when I had no fleets and I had to set 6. That worked. Another big, so after a year of doing Executor mirrors, we got kind of the light side version of Executor, which was really nice. The Profundity came out. gave us kind of really clean matches on both sides. I think Profundity versus Executor 95% of the time is a very easy matchup. When your ships don't assist, it becomes a lot more, well, you just lose. And on the other way, Executor versus Profundity is also very clean most of the time. So it kind of cleaned up the fleet meta at the top, at least where I was sitting. So it was our first R9 requirement. Which is something that I'm sure will change shortly as more stuff gets released. But yeah, Profundity came out and I think really cleaned up the ship meta.
So I think all of those are incredibly hard hitting changes that they made to the game. Obviously, there were others. The next two I'm going to put in the conversation, and that's Jabba the Hutt as a GL was released this year. And it's a very accessible GL as comparison to what they've released recently. But then also the new TB, which ironically is probably more accessible than any TB we've seen, shall we say, in the last 2 years. That's my personal opinion. A lot of guilds can get themselves up to a range rather quickly. I will say Jeddah has managed to accomplish this within a year to be able to start looking at both Jabba and the TB. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, Mortis is, I don't know, probably the highest GP guild in the Alliance that hasn't done Rise of the Empire yet, because we voted to do to alternate, and we're doing Rise of the Empire during Dark Side and sticking with LSGO during the light side. But we voted to get max stars on Hoth for the December Dark Side TB. So we haven't tried the new one out yet. But we're looking at it. We're making our plans for it in our officer chats, and based on what we've seen and how it works, we can get some pretty good results, right off the get go. And then as far as Jabba goes, how long has Lord Vader been out? Because we only have 2 of those in Mortis. I will be the third, and it'll be the first one actually farmed in Mortis that wasn't an outside recruit that we brought in. Whereas we already have 3 Jabbas, and we have a bunch more people working on them.
The JKL requirement is really nice for that. It overlaps really good with like your JML.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the next thing. I'm doing LV, and then I'm debating whether I should spend a little bit of time farming up a handful of tunes until Inquisitors get accelerated, or if I should just launch straight into Jabba. But
Primus, let's hear your opinion.
I think Jabba is a fantastic GL. Like you both touched on it earlier, very accessible. His requirements, there are some pretty dumpy tunes in there, like Mob Enforcer. But he has a team. Once you're done with the requirements, you have his team, which I think is one of the biggest upsides to a GL. I'm really happy with it. He has his own mod challenge, which, as I think all of us have seen, the rewards are very substantial. Very impressed with the rewards you get from it. Them alone, at just a couple months worth, it's just it really builds up. So Jabba, and he's required in the new TB. He's a all around amazing character, and in PvP, At least at the moment, we're still in Mandalore trying to figure out a very consistent way to take him out in territory wars because with the right modding, datacrons, he can definitely be a pain. So I'm overall very impressed with Jabba the Hutt. He's a great GL. TB, I was honestly very excited. We weren't sure what we were all walking into once it came out, and taking the first test drive of it a couple weeks back. But it's actually really fun. If you have the relic levels on your characters to complete some CMs, they're very doable. At least in the first couple planets. Light side though, those CMs are probably very difficult. Was definitely in for a shock when I saw my JML just get wiped in phase 1. I'm like, whoa, okay. But all the other CMs within like the mixed planet and the dark side, very manageable. So I think CG's pivoting to the direction now of, okay, guys, like you've hit these relic levels to meet our requirements. Like you should, with decent mods and knowing what you're doing as far as gameplay goes, you should be able to hit like 2 out of 2 for the CMs. So I'm fairly impressed, and shout out to Chameleon and Lab for territory battle planning. Done an excellent job as far as mapping out our plan and getting Mandalore prepped and ready for hitting 30 stars this go around. So pretty excited. Overall, good content.
So if we remember when the Hoth the GOTBs were dropped, it felt like we were getting kicked in the face. Like, if you were a middling guild, you couldn't engage in the content. I think they created something that is, yes, for guilds like Mandalore, you're not beating this anytime soon. You're going to get kicked in the face as you moved up. They're going to make you build the relic contents that you need to. But for newer guilds, once you get to, and so far the numbers are saying around 200 million GP, you can engage it and start getting the rewards that will actually help you build into being able to engage it. And that's kind of what I've liked about this. It didn't exclude the vast majority of players.
Yeah, I'll be curious to hear, like, on paper, a lower GP guild can go into this and get rewards that are better than what they could get in TB. But are you just spending 6 days deploying? Like, even my account is getting up there, but I guess, like, if you're preloading, like, if you're spending the first few days preloading the first phase and then moving to the second phase and preloading, like, yeah, Primus was saying, the first couple plants are pretty accessible, but, like, we went into, like, the third set of planets last time, and when you look at your roster and you need 5R7 tunes to just jump into a battle, and then you actually have to take those tunes and turn them into a usable team, it becomes very inaccessible very quickly as you kind of move through it. So I hope there is enough there for the lower GP guilds that they're actually, the players feel like they're engaging and they're not just deploying kind of every day at lunch, and that all TP is.
But that's what they were doing in Geo.
Well, not Dark Side. At least Dark Side you were playing. Like Dark Side, you barely need you don't even really need relics for the first little bit of Dark Side.
Yes, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Light side Geo was like hitting a brick wall, and I think even Primus would say that when they first experienced it. It was, and even playing it every day was such a gigantic grind.
Yep, I nightmares about the beginning or introduction of Lightside Geo. Seeing B2 and B1 just run circles around my squad before I took a turn. Yeah, nightmare material. But I
Even
felt like
that-
that was a different experience with Rise of the Empire. It wasn't just these absolute, preloaded TMBS. You actually can do something, I guess is the best way to put it, at least in the early phases before R7 and R8s are needed.
You felt like if you put the work in, you got the rewards out. You didn't have to spend 30 minutes on hopefully RNG.
Yeah, I would say so. We got to the R8 planet in the last TV in the light side, and I threw the most random composition at it at the CM, and still went for 2 for 2. Like, if you have the Rex, you're going to be able to engage in the content. You're not going to be steamrolled. I think my team was JMK, Gas, GMY, Han Solo, and Admiral Radis. That was my team comp for the R8 Miss CM, and I still went 2 for 2. So I think that's kind of the cool thing about this TB is, as long as you hit the requirements and you have decent modding, you're gonna more than at least get one CM wave. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, to expand on that, I think they've done a good job of kind of future proofing it, so that you don't have the high end guilds clearing it within a year, while still making it accessible for the lower end guilds who have good coordination and know what preloading a territory is.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to switch the conversation. Let's talk about the great things. Let's talk about our alliance. Tell me what you've seen that is both something that our alliance is challenged with and something that we can do better moving forward. A lot of silence.
Yeah, you threw
Yeah, I
us
mean,
right out there. Yeah.
I feel that we do a lot of things really, really well. It's the communication you have, the teamwork you have between the similar guilds. Like back when Little was the GL of Camino, we had a chat, a private chat with, it was me, him, and then Gray, our TB officer, not our TB, our raid C-Pit officer, where we were exchanging strategies, and we were both in a race to beat C-Pit for the first time. And they ended up beating us by like a week and a half. But we were right there behind him, and the amount of resource sharing that we do it's absolutely phenomenal.
Primus, your guild probably gets the least amount of, shall we say, strategy benefit from the alliance. But what's your reason for being aligned with us?
Definitely the community. As the server's just so massive, and there's just so many different channels for different subjects. It's just really awesome to see that so many different people from different levels of competitiveness and different GP ranges just coming together to either, just shoot the shit in the community chat or talk about what they use to undersize the newest galactic challenge, or what they did to cheese conquest. I think that's the thing that's really held me together in this game, is just the community itself, and really the Senate. I'm not sure if I told you guys, but before coming to the Senate, I was really on the cusp of leaving the game, just because I went through a really bad dissolving of my previous guild. I kind of didn't know where I was standing with the game. And then coming into the Senate, with Mandalore being so welcoming, and then kind of, slowly but surely getting out into the broader community of the Senate. There's just some awesome, fantastic people here.
Meet you later.
Yeah, this is a very strong community. So I mean, in April I put in my resignation. I said I was done. I said like this game was just taking up too much time, so I kind of let the officers in Endor know that I was going to step away, and then Zoro refused to recruit anyone, take my spot, and I was just like this community just staying in the either the Senate chat or Endor chat. I just was retired for I was supposed to be leaving for 3 weeks and I just didn't. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm not actually going because I don't want to leave this community. It's we do I mean, I still think it's tough how our guilds are set up. Like when you look at the Senate Alliance in the main area, there is the kind of community areas, but we all do have our kind of own little hive that we go back to. I don't know what goes on in Mandalore chat. Endor has its own chat. So I do think one of the things you have is I don't know how many players, but a lot of our guys really stick to just the Endor chat and have a hard time kind of making their way onto the Senate as a whole. I feel like based on what I see on the main Discord, that's probably fairly true for most guilds. Geo ran that awesome the Halloween event that we do so many of these fun events through the year, right? We had all those right where we were talking about our favorite characters, our favorite planets, the Halloween stuff. Those are such good events for kind of bringing bringing more players out of their individual guild chats and onto the main event and onto kind of the community chat altogether. So those were really good. But yeah, the community as a whole is wonderful here. It's why I'm it makes the overall enjoyment of this game so much more than just a mobile game.
So I'm fortunate to be blessed with an incredible guild that I have run with for years. I don't think it would exist without the Senate Alliance. We joined it a couple of years ago because we needed, I don't know, to expand our, shall we say, influence or expand our ability to recruit. And what we found was a whole lot more a brotherhood. We found a bunch of other like-minded guilds that we could run with. It was the best decision that we ever made as a guild to join this alliance. As for the alliance, um, I agree with every comment that was thrown down. It's we operate as individual guilds, but as a family, and I think that's what makes us different than a lot of other guilds or alliances. I'm sorry. We operate as a family. So I am happy to be here and talking with you all on this podcast, but let's go to the final subject. What do you see for the next year?
Oh man, I don't know what they could throw at us next.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
go ahead.
I kind of expect it to be, they'll throw out some more squads. We'll get the normal spring squad that's gonna come out and be the next base for a legendary or something. But they threw a lot of stuff at us in 2022, including this massive new TB. So maybe some quality of life updates or something. Maybe they can, accelerate ship farming. But I don't see a ton of major changes. I think they laid the groundwork for the changes this year, and unless they decide to mess with TW and throw crystals in there, which I pray that they don't do. I don't
Same.
I don't know
Please
what
don't.
Please don't.
I don't know what changes they can make.
I think they'll make some changes to territory war zone wise, just because it's you're going to reach a critical mass point when it comes to what squads you can set, and then how many X and excess you have. It's going to come to a point where it's just like, okay, who's going to be the most efficient, because both sides just have so many squads that they can use to just counter each other. So I'm curious. No more zone, like no more than 50, please. Like I think they have to change something as far as like
Actually,
how the zones are set up.
that would be pretty cool to go with, because I remember they tried to do it when they first launched TWs, but having like faction bonuses in different territories.
I think when it first launched, it was like First Order got
And
like the
resistance,
territory
yeah.
bonuses and resistance, but
It's kind of what
I think,
Omicrons already are.
yeah, I don't know if that's I don't know. I feel like territory war changes are coming. It's just my hunch. GAC, I don't see any changes because, I mean, the brackets are what they are. I really do hope they change the formula or whatever they're using to decide how the skill squish works, because by Christmas next year, there's going to be nobody in Kyber 1. So they gotta
There'll be 8
do
people in
something.
Kyber 1. There will be one bracket.
there'll be one bracket. Yeah, I think that they're probably gonna address something within that skill squish. Those territory wars and GAC, I think those are the two things top of my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, I think any changes they make there will be minor. It's not going to be a complete overhaul, like kind of how Datacrons and Omicrons last year kind of overhauled our rosters. I think it's going to be more of a subtle changes than, major breakthroughs.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think anything huge. I just don't see what they could do at this point to really make such a huge change like Datacrons, for example.
Yeah, like the only like kind of like something fun I would find is if you're able to, like, if you had your two fleet zones, but you could set them where you wanted. Like
Yeah,
to kind of play, like, so you could mess around more with like what your defense looked like. It wasn't like, if you go right, you'll find our ship. Like if you go top, you'll find our ships. Like you could hide them. You could so to kind of create more of a strategy there on where, like, you could split them up. You could put one in each corner or something, just to, I don't know, just to kind of make it more interesting, so you don't know. Like, I just feel like we have the exact same attack pattern every time in Endor. Like, we always go top, we always hit ships, we always go mid, and then we clean bottom. It's like this is how we do it. It would be
I think that would
interesting.
be a welcome change for sure.
Like, it would just be interesting. It would just like you just don't know, right? It's not like you clear that second top zone and you're like, fleets are open. Like, this is this counter, this is that counter. It would be like, oh shit, there are no fleets here. It would be like, we need more squads.
So
Yeah.
be ready for more TB Omicrons. I think that's where they're going to go this next year, allowing guilds like Mandalore to get their 20 million or 20 million per, or 20,000, isn't it? Yeah, 20,000. I have a feeling they're going to make TB Omicrons a little bit more powerful.
They better, because they're not useful at all.
I think
Like,
I think that's where they're heading. But I think they're going to really lean into a bunch of fan favorites this next year. We have a lot of great Disney content that's being released, and I'm looking forward to farming it. Think about a new really great Ahsoka, a new great Thrawn. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff, in my opinion, coming out this year. And I'm looking forward to it because ultimately it's a collector's game. I want to be competitive, but I also want to farm the players that make me happy. Uh,
So who do
that's
you guys
what
want? We have a light side GL coming out next, right?
Oh,
Java's been
absolutely.
out for a while. There's at some point before by spring we should hear about the next GL. So
Do
who's
we?
your? Do you just want Ahsoka,
a
like GL
GL
Ahsoka Rem? Is that what you want? You just want
that would
right?
make me so freaking happy. She's my
Just
favorite tune in the game.
just instead of like old man Luke, you get like old woman Ahsoka.
No. Whatever new Ahsoka,
Yeah,
whatever
she's
new.
old now, man. That's an old lady out there now.
Seems like a fine
No.
wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she should be awesome. Or what? How about a new GL Thrawn?
Well, but that's dark side. They got to do another light side. They got to keep it balanced.
Doesn't matter. That may be
Chill
your next
Thrawn.
two. Yeah,
Make them neutral.
yeah. And that's what he would be, by the way, is neutral.
Yeah. Primus, what do you want? What's your GL? What's your light side GL wish?
Oh man, there's Lightside GL. Like, who have they not hit at this point? That's Galactic Legend worthy. I guess Leia would
Yeah.
probably be like the only other person that, in my opinion, would be worthy of a Lightside GL title, at least within the
You
trilogy. Or,
And the
you
canon.
under,
series.
you
And
understand
new
that would
canon.
be a
Yeah.
resistance GL.
No. Give me Endor Leia. I don't
Yeah,
want
that's
If we're
resistance.
getting a Leia, it better be Endor Leia.
I grabbed a log ray and brought him to R7 because I'm like, when GL Leia comes out, there's gonna be some Rs like Ewoks required. So
Can
Yes.
you
let me
imagine?
if I gotta relic some characters up for my guild, I'm gonna make them Ewoks, so I'm ready.
Be
I
ready.
would.
It will be a
I would be
resistance
baffled.
GL.
I just don't. There's not enough resistance that would be no. I don't know. If it's got to be Endor Leia. There's not enough resistance characters to support GL Ray, and then a whole other GL on top of it that wouldn't just be garbage with her units.
Yeah, resistance fighter.
Rose Tico, Rose Resistance Trooper. I don't know. I think it's hopefully. I think Endor Leia is my bet, but we'll see. You never know with CG. I did not expect Jabba the Hutt. That was definitely something I don't think many expected.
Cal Kestis is the other kind of like wild card. His new game's coming out, like his second game's coming out in the spring. I think Fallen Order was like really well received. Like they might. I don't know if I'd be more surprised. Like I would be. That makes sense for kind of like the spring team, and he'll be the legendary. I
Yeah.
don't think he's a GL worthy, but I would be very surprised if we don't see like Cal Kestis content coming out in the spring.
Yeah, I got a feeling that that's going to be the spring team.
Yeah.
I think you and I chatted about that before, but if we're going to go light side GL and we're not going to go with because they said they're not going to be releasing GLs in pairs anymore. Like we're not going to have JMK, LV, and C and JML and all that. If they decide to go back to Old Republic, I'd love to see like Revan Reborn or Jedi Exile come out as a GL because that would just be that's a whole new crop of characters that they can pluck from.
Would he be neutral though? Would he be the first neutral GL?
Oh, there's a character coming out that they could do that with a new game releasing very soon.
Who do you got? Who else are you talking about?
We already have a version of him.
Oh, Jedi Knight or
Starkiller. Not Starkiller. What's his name? We don't even have a version of him in the game, do we?
What are
Wow.
you talking about? So I can't answer.
I am blanking right now. Give me 30 seconds talk and I'll figure it out.
So if Cal Kestis comes out as a legendary, who are the tunes needed for him?
Yeah. Well,
BD1.
I think this is when they bring Saw in, right? Like, I feel
They
like
could bring Saw in for that, or they could bring him in with some new Andor tunes.
I like it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like all that stuff is happening at the same time. I was
Yeah,
actually
true.
like,
Yeah.
But like
Yeah,
his
'cause
whole team, I haven't played. I mean, we'll see who he's with in like the second game. But he kind of had that whole. I can't remember. I played the game like 2 years ago, but that whole ship, whoever like on his ship, right? He had his
Air,
team.
Grease, BD1, and Mirren.
Yeah,
Yeah. But would she be
Yeah.
Night Sister though? I don't know if she gets released.
What
If she
it
could
would
go
be
to
interesting
Night
to
Sister.
see if she could help take the Night Sister team to the next level. Because
yeah.
we've
They
got
need
some
help.
Night Sister fans.
So you all are hitting on the tune I was talking about.
Oh, Cal Kestis?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But he would not be neutral.
No, he's
He'd be light
He's a
side. He'd
Jedi.
be
He's a
absolutely light
Jedi.
side Jedi.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, Jedi, he may go neutral, but
Would he get a rebel tag?
Once he goes to the dark side in the new game, I don't see him being neutral because he was very much, light side there.
yeah.
I killed a lot of stormtroopers in that game.
Oh my god!
Did
I
you
actually
enjoy
just finished my
yourself?
third playthrough of that game a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
All right,
Yeah, I
gentlemen.
gotta get that going before we do before the second one comes out.
Oh, apparently the initial release is not going to be available unless you have the next gen. So my PS4 is not going to be able to run it upon release.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
My PS5 will do just fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like Geo Leia, Cal Kestis, and all this stuff is gonna come out, and I'm gonna farm Lord Vader instead.
See, that's why I'm getting
Yeah.
Lord Vader out of the way right now.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like if they're not a double farms and if you're not ahead of the game, you're better off kind of waiting a little bit. We'll see.
Honestly, one of the things that they've released a lot of different squads and a lot of different like GLs that if you're not in Mandalore basically chasing the meta, it's been great because you can pick and choose who you want to go for, and you're not wrong. Doesn't matter really who you're farming, as long as you're chasing one of the newer squads or something. Even some of the older GLs, they all are still incredibly relevant to the game, and you have variety because, like as you were saying, Rim, it's like it is a collector's game. So if yes, if you're gonna go after Reva, you have to go for Inquisitors, but barring that, you can go for anyone. You can go for Star Killer. You can go for um, Afra or whatever GL you want, and it's still gonna just greatly improve your squads and your team. And it's just I do enjoy that because for the longest time, the meta was nothing but mirror matches. It was if you don't have gas, if you don't have Malik, if you don't have this. Now there is definitely more of a rock paper scissors out there, and it's refreshing to see.
Agreed. Anyone else have a last comment before we wrap this up?
I think last
Primus.
year was a good year. I think like overall, I know CG kind of gets dumped on, but I think we got a lot of stuff last year, and a lot of good stuff. And I think the game is in a lot better shape now than it was going into 2022.
Yeah, I
Fair
think 2021 was a pretty rough year for the game overall. I'm pretty happy with 2022 as far as content wise, and where I guess where the state of the game is.
Already R2DQ.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the state of the game. Being the GL of a semi-competitive guild makes all of the changes a lot easier because we're not chasing the meta. We are behind, and we're you want the new stuff and you're going to work for it, but the new change doesn't cause the rifts that some of the more competitive guilds are running into. So we're able to weather the storm really easily, and it's been great. 2022 we did in Mortis, we cleared C Pit, we did a lot of great things, and definitely looking forward to the future.
I'm with you all. I am very much looking forward to the next year. I think it's going to work for all of us. We have done an amazing job as an alliance of finding a way through all of the challenges that are thrown at us. I think we will continue to figure out a way to succeed as an alliance moving forward.
With our freshly minted chancellor.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
You will
I'm-
lead us to the promised land.